room. This is the play that just occurred.
That's like she tries to slide over right there, and Hartley just kind of falls and makes collision with that lower leg. You see her immediately grab it. And she went down hard and was clearly in a lot of pain.
Sophie Cunningham went down after a violent knee collision, and immediately, many fans along with members of her own family voiced outrage at the officiating, arguing that referees had once again failed to protect players. For them, this was not an isolated moment, but the continuation of a troubling trend. They recalled Caitlin Clark's groin injury that sidelined her, the notorious eye poke delivered by J.C. Sheldon, and Marina Mabry's reckless foul. Time and again, every matchup with the Connecticut Sun seemed to leave someone from the Fever battered, and frustration among supporters was boiling over. But instead of falling apart, Indiana fought back. Powered by Kelsey Mitchell's career-high 38 points, Odyssey Sims stepping in on a hardship contract, and Lexie Hull's crucial three-pointer, the Fever pulled off a remarkable 99-93 overtime comeback victory that few believed possible. The question remained, how did this team turn everything around after such a disastrous first half? For those pulling for Sophie and the Fever, the hope was for her swift recovery. Late in the game, with the shot clock dwindling to 6, Brianna Turner faked, swung the ball, and Hull buried a three-pointer, energizing Indiana. Moments later, with just 25 seconds left in regulation and 7 seconds on the shot clock, they desperately needed a basket. Nolissa Charles was forced to hoist up a difficult attempt, but she nailed it. Somehow, the Fever had shown their resilience, once again, proving their fight in the face of adversity. Yet the problems began long before the opening tip. Indiana entered the game without all three of their natural point guards. Caitlin Clark remained sidelined after her groin injury suffered. In mid, Sydney Colson was lost for the season with a torn ACL. Ari McDonald was still recovering from a broken foot. This left the Fever without a true floor general, forcing coach Stephanie White to redesign the offense from scratch, rather than fine-tuning sets for playoff positioning, as most teams were doing at this stage of the season. Indiana was forced to simplify, trimming the playbook to actions that wouldn't overwhelm players now asked to handle the ball outside their natural roles. After their matchup with Phoenix, White described the scramble. The team had to quickly adjust once Ari and Colson went down, and now they needed to figure out how to function without Sophie as well. She admitted they were reevaluating substitution patterns, experimenting with new wrinkles, and acknowledging that nothing was getting easier. Facing Minnesota twice next, she noted that the challenge was as much mental and emotional as it was physical. Still, she welcomed the rare stretch of practice time ahead, knowing the team desperately needed it. That challenge only escalated once the game tipped off. Midway through the second quarter, Sophie Cunningham collided hard while battling. Under the basket, she played only about 10 minutes before she was forced to leave for good. Her shooting ability and toughness had been central to White's patched-together rotation, and losing her robbed Indiana, not just of depth, but of critical floor spacing that their offense relied upon. Suddenly, players unprepared for extended minutes were thrust into expanded roles, and the coaching staff had to juggle fatigue, matchups, and simple survival. By halftime, the rotation was stretched thin, with the Fever plugging holes wherever they appeared. The moment Cunningham went down was gut-wrenching. She writhed in pain, kicking and screaming on the floor. Known for her toughness, her visible distress made it clear something serious had happened. Even Connecticut Sun players and training staff rushed to check on her, as Fever players slowly walked away in concern. On paper, this looked like the point where Indiana's night would unravel. Yet instead of folding, they leaned into the chaos, turning disarray into an opportunity to showcase grit. It became survival mode, but also a defiant statement. Fewer bodies did not mean less resistance. Still, the hardest moment of the night wasn't behind them. It arrived when Cunningham's brutal knee injury not only altered Indiana's rotation but reignited anger about officiating standards. In the huddle, the Fever's motto had always been together, and players insisted it was more than a slogan. They knew that any division could sink the season even faster than injuries. Opponents and fans might expect them to fold under the circumstances, but Indiana refused to accept that narrative. Each halftime speech was a reminder to chip away and uplift one another. The players emphasized that when one teammate falls, the next woman steps up, a mantra they had been forced to live by all year, and one they leaned on again now. The defining moment of the night came in the second quarter, when Bria Hartley lost her balance on a drive and crashed directly into Cunningham's right knee. The collision silenced the arena. Cunningham immediately clutched her knee, crying out in pain before collapsing. Unable to put any weight on her leg, she had to be carried off by trainers. Indiana later announced she would undergo an MRI. Shockingly, no foul was called, and that decision immediately sparked outrage in the arena and across social media. Many demanded answers. How could Hartley drop her shoulder into Cunningham's legs with no whistle? To some, it looked not just reckless, but dirty. The scene was emotional. Fans stood, shouting at referees as Cunningham lay under the basket, and teammates' anger boiled over as the game continued without stoppage. Afterward, Coach Stephanie White admitted that her initial thought when she saw Cunningham screaming was blunt, "Holy shit." She described how, in the moment, all she could think of was calming her player down and helping her regroup, though the fear of something serious was obvious. For much of the fanbase, Cunningham's injury wasn't just a freak accident. Against the Sun, it felt like another chapter in a long, unsettling story. Memories resurfaced. Sheldon's eye poked to Clark in June, Mabry's hard foul that floored Clark, and Sheldon's knee to Clark's groin on July 15th, the very play that has kept her sidelined for over a month. Too many, this was not coincidence but a pattern of reckless play unchecked by the league, as Cunningham was helped off. Television cameras captured her agony. Back from commercial, the broadcast noted how she had been carried to the locker room. Emotions escalated even further when her family spoke out. Her sister Lindsay called out the WNBA directly on social media, urging the league to prioritize hiring competent officials capable of consistently protecting players instead of fining them for criticizing refereeing. She ended her message by calling the situation pathetic and saying she was praying for Sophie. Her mother, Paula Cunningham, added fuel by posting in a since-deleted message that Hartley was plain mean and played out of control. Fans quickly circulated those words, interpreting them as validation that the play was more than accidental. Hartley, who has a history of on-court clashes, was quickly labeled reckless by fans online, many of whom demanded a suspension. The lack of a foul call only deepened the frustration, sharpening the debate over officiating standards and accountability. If there was one silver lining, it was that Cunningham was later seen in relatively good spirits in the locker room. Still, for the Fever, the real shift came on the court. What began as heartbreak transformed into fuel. Indiana's players didn't let sympathy define the night. They let resilience and emotion carry them instead. And soon, all that fire funneled through one player who seized the moment to rewrite the game and possibly the team's trajectory moving forward. In the locker room, after the win, voices trembled with pride. Coaches and teammates emphasized that resilience wasn't just a buzzword, but a way of life. Their connectedness, grit, and refusal to give in had defined this season. Then Kelsey Mitchell delivered her own defining response. Quiet with just 4 points before halftime, she erupted afterward with one of the most explosive scoring stretches the Fever have ever seen. A takeover that turned chaos into triumph.